Good morning. Welcome to the Pitch Track Chronicles, where fans become family. I am Uncle Tats. I'm here with Donald and Rob, and this is pretty much just a continuation of the amazing show that we had on last night and the reaction with Juan Soto. And yeah, the nightmare was real. Soto did not land with the Yankees. He is now switching boroughs to the Queens, and look, it reminded me. One of the things that came to my mind was almost the Tiki Barber Saquon Barkley reaction. Like, you're dead to me now. You made your bed, now you got to lie in it. Um, you know, one thing that I did see a lot of on social media, and a lot of people called it out, was look, don't wish injury on him. Let's start with the hate towards the guy himself. Right? He made a decision for him, for his future, and but we don't have to accept the fact that he's not on our team. But let's not wish harm on the guy. All right, let's be civilized about it. All right, it's a sport. It's not like he broke into your house and took all your shit, and then is now living right next door to you, where you have to look at it all the time. So yeah, don't wish injury, don't wish harm on him or anybody that's affiliated with him. Let's just try to get through this, but in a civilized society. But I think that what really is still stinging the most is that the Yankees are just not. They really need to reevaluate how they're going to do business in the future. Because they're not unbeatable anymore. They're not undefeated anymore in the free agent market. I think that's the one thing that's apparent. On that statement, guys, want to throw it around to you guys and how you think about is this going to be that move, that moment where the Yankees start to really evaluate themselves on how they're going to conduct business going forward?
They said the same thing when Harper signed, when we didn't go after Harper and we didn't get Machado, but we ended up signing Garrett Cole. So, and we ended up getting Aaron Judge back. I don't think this move is gonna affect how the Yankees operate, because the Yankees still were willing to offer the man $760 million. It's not like the Mets offered him 800 and the Yankees were like, well, we're not gonna go past 650. It wasn't like this dramatic difference in money. In fact, Ken Rosenthal reported that the Yankees were at like 710 or something like that, or 712, and they ended up bumping it up to 760 because they were told they were far behind in the negotiations. So I don't think it's going to really kill the Yankees' chances of getting big free agents. It's just Juan Soto and maybe even Scott Boras were using the other teams to drive up the price as much as he possibly can, and I don't blame him for it. You're trying to get the most money for your agent, and as a player, you're trying to make the most money you can. And at the end of the day, he just wanted to be a Met. I don't think this really hurts the Yankees' legacy, or I mean, in a way, it does. It definitely stings, but I don't think it should change how they operate. If there's a player out there they really want to go and get, they should still do whatever it takes. And that the name does mean something. The Steinbrenner pockets are still very, very deep. They can still go out and get a lot of players that they want. It's just that in this case, they were outbid in what would have been the richest contract ever in sports. If had the Yankees gotten him, it would have been the richest contract of all time. So it's not like they were so far behind in the negotiations that they were just laughed at. It was close. Even with the Mets' ability to add $5 million to his contract every year, if they avoid the opt out, it's still a pretty close second that the Yankees came in. Now, I know second's not first, but I don't think that it's going to change the way they operate. It's maybe they have to go a little bit more now if there's a player they really want and they're in a bidding war with the Mets. If it comes to them versus Cohen, you might just have to really go overboard. And I don't know if they want to do that. Again, spend smart. That's something we've been saying the whole time.
Donald.
So, according to MLB Radio, both Boris and Soto were not looking at teams. Let me be clear: they were not looking at teams. They wanted to come up with a record-setting deal to raise tide in salary for players across the board. This had nothing to do with individual teams, although I think the Mets had a lot to do with it. But Cohen presented a structure of a deal the Yankees could not match. Soto, and this is the key here, guys, for guys that are upset, like me, Soto did not have any bond to the Yankees. That's it. I mean, if that's not like a full stop, when I read that, I was like, all right, time to stop feeling sorry for yourself. And there's a lesson there for all of us who maybe fall in love with the wrong people. You know what I mean? And trusted the Yankees. I mean, to be honest, I put my heart and soul in a written for Soto. I thought Soto was the guy. I thought Soto was going to be the guy that's going to take this team to World Series championships and lead this team down the line and all that stuff. I was wrong. He wasn't interested in that. He wasn't. He was. As it says there, he wanted to reset the market. It was all about. It was all about that. So the whole Yankee thing wasn't a thing for him. He wasn't interested. Didn't care. It wasn't about teams. So this was a whole plan from the start. It was him and Boris. And now you can look back at the interviews that Juan Soto had, where he was very clear. The Yankees have no advantage in this. He kept saying it, and we kept dismissing it. Oh, it's fine. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. No, well, maybe we need to listen to it because it sounds like he was being very, very honest. The Yankees didn't have any advantage because he had no love lost towards them. It is what it is. And I think another factor is I think Cohen did a better job of communicating an owner-player relationship. Hal already said that he didn't really speak to Soto that much during the year. And then he tried to make amends for that afterwards. But Cohen, I think, sold the whole freaking thing. I think he's basically made Juan Soto like a joint partner in the Mets at this stage, right? I mean, you're paying him almost $1 billion. I mean, $800 million is insane. So you know that he's going to have a very close relationship with his owner. I think that was something that Soto had a particular interest, and so that's it. That's really it, man. I think the Mets sold a better vision than the Yankees did, and it is what it is. Lou, what did I say was wrong? Stop it, Donald. We offered $760. Something to do with what we offered. It's about as I just read right there. He wasn't interested in teams per se. Who's going to offer him the most money? And the fact that the Yankees didn't, well, he didn't have any love lost, and that was it. So I don't know what I said there that would make you think otherwise. I mean, I just read out what the report is. Don't shoot the messenger. So at the end of the day, personally, and I was all in on Soto, I would have stopped at 702, even 710. 710, I would have cut up right there because that's already a record-breaking contract. And anything more than that was almost taking the piss at that point. You know what I'm saying? So 750 is actually way beyond what I would have offered. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, that's a crazy offer what we put together.
No, it's like we had the debate, at the beginning of spring of the offseason, give this guy, everybody was saying blank check. I'm like, but there has to be a limit to when you say blank check. The Yankees hit their limit, and it didn't matter if say the Yankees did match Cohen's offer. Cohen was just going to up it again. Cohen flexed his muscle, and he won the fight. It is what it is. We got to move forward.
Yeah.
And a big part of the conversation that we were having yesterday is there's no pivot the Yankees can make right now that's going to soften the blow of Soto leaving. It's not there. It's not like you're going to make a trade with the Phillies for Bryce Harper. You're not trading for Manny Machado. There's nobody on that market in free agency that's going to be like, okay, we could survive this. That's the problem. We have to wait another year for that market. So it's really, what do the Yankees do now for 2025?
Facts.
Where we as fans can be as confident as we were in 2024, where we felt like we really had the complete team. Everything was falling into place. So Judge having a phenomenal year. Cole coming off the Cy Young, missing some time and still being able to find himself and be vintage Cole. Rodon staying healthy all year, giving us a solid season. The emergence of Luis Heel, Clark Schmidt, Austin Wells behind the plate, working with these pitches. He did a phenomenal job. What was, Anthony Volpe, the trade for Jazz in the middle of the season. Everything was coming into place. And the rug was just swept out from under us in one move. That's the hard part about it.
And I'm not trying to repeat myself from yesterday. We talked about this for 2.5 hours, that it's difficult to replace. It's almost impossible to replace that production, but there are still players out there you can acquire, whether it's free agents or trades, that'll make you a better team than what you're at right now. So that's as simple as it is. Morosi just reported that we're still in on a lot of free agent relievers, which is something that we needed to attack to begin with, but now we have a little extra money to throw around. So maybe, like I said yesterday, they go all out for pitching. It's a wait and see game. There's still plenty of time between now and pitchers and catchers. So a lot can happen in 2 months. The Yankees.
The last thing I want to talk about, I think, because we do need to move on, because we covered it for 2.5 hours. There was this report from Jeff Passan. In the end, Juan Soto looked at the Mets' future and he looked at the Yankees' future and decided that the Mets had a better future than the Yankees. That is the story of how the Mets got Juan Soto. Also, a couple things I heard is that Soto was more impressed with what the Mets had to offer than what the Yankees did. I don't think he liked a lot of the answers that he was getting to his questions about the Yankees' development and those issues. Let's touch on that for a minute, and then we move on to how we move on as a franchise from Juan Soto. So let's talk about that. There was also that report that the Mets jumped on a bit of intel that they found out that this is another thing here, guys. The Mets found out that Soto was actually upset with the Yankees, and it started at the start of the year. And basically, there was an overzealous security guy that banned his family and his chef/driver. And the Mets found that out through their intel and used it to their advantage during the negotiation. So the Yankees managed to piss off Juan Soto at the start of the year with some overzealous security guy. Card collector says, fire that security guy. Absolutely. Now, I'm not overly surprised at that, because me and Tats were at the Audi suite, and I thought that we were we were herded at times by some of the staff there, and they also had some rude comments to some of the people that were at the event, from what I recall. But I'm not overly surprised.
Yeah, I mean the Audi suite. Look, it was one. Pete's events are legendary. It's a phenomenal meetup. There's nothing to do with
no, nothing to do with
the way you underground and what Pete does. I'm telling you, if you get a chance to go to one of their events, do it. But no, it was. You could just see, you could feel the eyes on the back, on your back, just kind of like, shut up, I'm trying to eat my dinner. For the people that weren't with the group, getting into it was a pain in the ass. They ask you 50. We were asked 50 million questions, even with the ticket.
Yeah.
It's security is very
tight.
It's very tight, but one, that's their job. I get that. But they have to get a heads up. They should have known, or maybe they weren't informed that this was Soto's entourage, and his family. So that's just communication from the Yankees itself. If there was an issue with the security, because if the security doesn't get the heads up that, hey, this person is affiliated to this player, they're just going to do their job like they would any other person that comes to the ballpark.
Yeah.
So I think there's a chain of events that led to some of the animosity with the security and all that.
And remember the whole thing with Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. Remember, Ken Griffey Jr. swore he would never be a Yankee again because of the way that he was treated as a kid when his dad was playing at Yankee Stadium. Do you guys recall that?
Yep.
That was years ago, though.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to go into DeLorean and go back to all those years. We can try to find issues in the past, but you can do that with every team. I'm sure there's issues with the Mets back in the day. I'm not going to look too far into a security guard thing because apparently the Yankees were the front runner up until the last hour yesterday. So how much of a factor could it have been if he was still heavily considering coming back to the Yankees? I'm sure it played a little bit of a part in it, but when the Mets came out and said, hey, we'll give you a deal that could eventually be $805 million, of course he was going to take it. It just made more sense for him financially. He gets more money per year, more money overall, and he gets to be the face of that franchise. So I don't know if that's secure. I'm sure that's a little bit of a part of it. If the Mets use that to their advantage, fine, but I don't know how much of a factor it could have been if he was still considering coming here up until the very last minute. So clearly it wasn't that much of a factor.
What about the vision issue then? If the security issue isn't the big deal, what about the vision issue with the Jeff?
I think that's that was probably more of a factor of it as well. The Mets have probably a younger core than we do, and they have a good farm system. That was probably more of a part of it. When the Mets came up with that second offer or that new offer, and you combine it, it's not like the Yankees are going to be bad for many years. They still have Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole in their primes. They still have a good farm system. It's just that their guys are probably a little bit further away than the Mets guys are. He still wanted to come here. He was still willing to come back, but when the Mets upped their offer, you combine everything. Okay, now he's got Cohen. He's going to have a good relationship with Cohen. He likes their vision, and he's getting more money. And the Mets have a good team as well, and they're clearly willing to spend money to make their team better around him. It was just a better situation overall for him. I don't think the security guard played that much of a factor as much as the vision. But both teams are still going to be good next year. Right now, the Mets are better on paper, but anything can happen in baseball, as we've seen. But again, I'm not going to look too far into a security guard thing because at the very last minute, he was still very, very much willing to come back to the Yankees.
Well, I think it wasn't the Yankees, though. As I've mentioned before, it wasn't about teams. It was about who could offer the most money. So it was the Mets.
Yankees were but for a while, the Yankees were. So, it's not like he was saying, there's no chance I'm coming back. Remember the security guard thing? Because then he wouldn't have even bothered to negotiate if it was that much of a factor.
Yeah.
It was the money, a lot of it, and the Mets' vision that they were selling him.
Well, let's talk about that. Why is it that the Mets are offering a better vision than the New York Yankees? Because that's what we need to pivot to. Because this is now about reflection. This is about taking some responsibility and how to get better in the future, regardless of Juan Soto's opinions. So this is a time for some reflection. Why is it that the Mets offered a better vision than the New York Yankees? So let's start with Uncle Tats.
I think the farm system is one. The deep pockets was another. There are a lot. There are a number of factors. Cohen came in swinging his big money around, and he grabbed Verlander and Scherzer, and realized that this it's not about who spends the most money; it's how it spend it, which is something we've been screaming about the Yankees to do for a long time. They gave Lindor the contract, right away. Cohen is not messing around. All right. And I think, I don't think it's fair to look at the Mets the way we did you can't compare this Mets organization now to what they were when the Wilpons owned it. It's almost like it's a brand new team. It's got a brand new leadership, they have a brand new vision. And they have been under the radar enough where maybe their farm is not as bad as the metrics are saying, and they do have a plan. You're seeing that the Mets have been able to go on sustained runs. They haven't won the World, they haven't been back to a World Series since 2015. But in this new era with Cohen, they could, players are going to be able to see that if they think that they're close enough, they're going to pull the trigger and make a move. Whether it's bring somebody up or bring somebody in. And there's not going to be hesitation about it. And it's that kind of confidence and swagger from the ownership group that's going to appeal to players.
Rob.
It's a combination of things because they can spend on who they want, and their farm system is very good. They got a lot of guys that are going to be ready very, very soon, whereas our better prospects won't be ready until 2026, the earliest. So, also, the Mets, they still have a lot more money to spend. If the Yankees had gotten Soto for 47, they would have to move so much stuff around just to create more money to build a better team around him. Because even with Soto, the Yankees still had holes. Now, we addressed how they can create that money, but easier said than done. The Mets now have like another $60 million they can just go spend. Go get a frontline starter. Go add to your bullpen. Go get Pete Alonso back. They can probably get 3 players for the money that they have left. They probably won't get Burns or Fried or anything like that, but they can still go get 3 very good players to surround Juan Soto with, and their team is ready to go. Their rotation is not the best in the world, but if they add a good starter to it, it's good. You got Senga, you have Montas is okay. They have a couple of good starters. I don't know what they're doing with Clay Holmes, but they got to add to that bullpen, and they got to get Pete Alonso back, and if they do that, that lineup is really scary. Because that lineup was good last year without Juan Soto. Now you add Juan Soto to it, it's a really good lineup top to bottom, and I think that was another factor. The Yankees lineup was very reliant on the 2 players, and if you do get Soto back, there aren't that many players that you can add with the money you had left that would really lengthen the lineup, where the Mets can say, all we really got to do is just get Alonso back, and this lineup is deep 1 through 9. The Yankees' lineup deep was like 1 through 5, with relying on a lot of younger players to take that next step. The Mets don't really have to rely on that with their offense because they still have Lindor, who's phenomenal. Vientos broke out last year. Alvarez is a good hitter. If they bring Alonso back, they still have Marte. They have Nimmo. McNeil was okay. They have good hitters. And it's a more structured lineup than ours would have been, even with Juan Soto. I think that all plays into it. Plus, their future is a little closer than ours.
And then you've got David Stearns, who's a very good GM.
And you got Steve Cohen's money.
And you've got Mendoza, who's a better manager than Aaron Boone. Just real talk. He is. He managed the ass off of Aaron Boone in those in the Subway Series games during the year. So let's be honest about it. I think a lot of this is to do with the different managing situations. The Yankees have refused to take any accountability in terms of fundamentals. I mean, I keep mentioning it, but if you look at these interviews from our leaders, and there just isn't a winning at all cost mentality that comes across. You know what I'm saying? Is like Cashman was like, "Oh well, we didn't put our best foot forward in the World Series," and then Aaron Boone's like, "Oh, togetherness. So we love each other. We just told each other how much we love each other." I don't think that shit flies with a Juan Soto. I mean, Juan Soto looked legitimately disgusted looking out at that dugout after the final out, the World Series. He looked disgusted. And I just don't know if there was enough of a mentality there that projects, you know what, this is unacceptable. We can't play like this in a World Series. But there was too many people that were a little bit self-satisfied. Hal Steinbrenner mentioned after his meeting with Juan Soto in free agency that, Soto had some questions about our development staff and our training complex. I think it's just because he's interested. I mean, you have to be deluded if you think that's what it's about. He had serious questions and serious concerns, and the Yankees didn't address them clearly. So these are the kind of things that the Yankees have to be better at, and it's time for reflection. It's time for accountability, and it's time to be better. It's time to be better. The Yankees have been far too self-satisfied, and this predates Soto. This is nothing to do with Soto. This goes way past. This is post 2010, right? Do you guys all agree? This is post 2010.
Yep.
That at the end of the day, the Yankees have been making decisions with their roster allocation, their resource allocation, and their decision making, which has led them to a point where they were desperately overpaying for Juan Soto just to cover up a bunch of holes in a roster that they haven't filled. They should have filled these holes predating Juan Soto. And that's what it comes down to. They haven't done it. They haven't done it enough. You look in the past. You know, we could have gotten a Bryce Harper, could have gotten a Manny Machado, but instead Brian Cashman extended Aaron Hicks on a 10-year contract. These are the kind of decision making which screws you down the line. You know, and now we're still paying the price of that Aaron Hicks contract. He's still on the books. He's still on the books. He's been gone for he's been gone for a year. So these are the decisions that's come back to bite us in the ass because we haven't done a good enough job developing. The last star we developed was Aaron Judge, and he's now like 33. Right? Now, Luis Gil looks like he's a legit prospect, and we're very excited about him. And we've still got Jitson Dominguez, we've still got Anthony Volpe, but the Yankees haven't done a great job in general. Once they reach the majors, it looks like we're doing pretty good in AA, AAA, but once they make that jump to the majors, the Yankees haven't done a good enough job developing them. Because again, they're far too self-satisfied. Oh, Aaron, it's all about relationships with Aaron Boone. Well, I would prefer a manager that can preach the fundamentals. I want a manager that can hold people more accountable. I want a manager that can, you know, take somebody aside and go, right, this is the drill. This is how you're going to do it. This kind of stuff. Because that's what the kind of stuff that you do with Mendoza. That's what Mendoza's done with the Mets. That's what Cora's done with the Red Sox. That's what good managers do. The Yankees don't do it. They're far too self-satisfied. They're far too just content with making the playoffs. And that's what I was annoyed at. After that World Series disgrace, I was disgusted, right? And they were self-satisfied. Hey, you know, it was great. We made the World Series, blah, blah. I don't care. Like, I could care less we made the World Series if you're going to play like that. So it's time for some real reflection. And that's why I've been saying it for a long time. I think the Yankees need a whole fresh start. And so I tweeted right after the announcement. I said the best pivot the Yankees could do post Soto is a new general manager, new manager, and a replacement for Mike Fishman, because the Yankees have paid the price for a lack of vision, which is true because they haven't had a vision since 2017. Poor roster development, which is true because look at the amount of holes that's on this roster. And poor resource allocation for years. That is true. Because, again, look at all the holes in the roster. Soto covered a ton of holes himself, and that is not sustainable. And he knew it because he obviously saw it. It was him, and it was Judge and Stanton in that lineup, and there was a big drop off after that. So that's the case, man. It's time for the Yankees to be accountable, and they haven't been in a long time. They need a fresh approach.
And that's something that we've been talking about for a while is the fresh approach, you know. But I think that a big part of it is Hal's very comfortable with Cashman, like, you know, and unless there's, you know, a big free agent, really Hal stays out of the way. He just says that here's where the budget is. Just do it. Do what you feel is best for the organization. You know, and it's not like they're not in on guys. You know, I think, you know, maybe Cashman has just lost his magic of being a GM, where he just doesn't have that doesn't have it to land who he wants.
I mean, at the risk of not repeating ourselves too much, but that's why I keep saying the biggest change they can make is internally.
Yeah.
That's why I've been saying that. I don't know if they're going to do that. The Yankees seem to be very comfortable with what they have, which is a problem, and that's something that we've been talking about for quite some time. So this, with or without Soto, that wouldn't have changed, unfortunately. But maybe this does open their eyes and say, man, why didn't he choose us? Was it just the money? Was it the vision? Did we not sell him on a better future here? Like, starting to sound like you broke up with your girlfriend, but what was it that they did better than us? Maybe that does force the Yankees to open their eyes a little bit and change some things, because that word fundamentals could absolutely come back and be a big reason for it. Now, this could all be fluff. This could all just be like nonsense, and he just wanted the more money and, like you said earlier, reset the market. But there's got to be another reason for it. But the Yankees, one way or the other, they have to open their eyes and say, why did we struggle so much? Why were the Dodgers able to just say beat themselves and we'll have the upper hand? Those things have to come into question, and hopefully this will help open their eyes a little bit and make some changes. But again, it really, at this point, it's about moving on. The Yankees have to move on. I think we have to move on. He's a Met now. There's nothing we can do to change that. And the question just remains, what do they do next? And again, I still don't have an idea what that is, but they've kicked the tires on so many different players. We hear that every year. It's just about who do they bring in now. There are still players out there that'll make this team better than what they are right now, because they're not a very good lineup right now. And let's just wait and see. 2 months is a long time.
I mean, the big takeaway I get out of these answers is the word comfort. And that is the problem. And as Raul says, comfort breeds complacency. And that is a fact. This all predates Soto. So this is really has little to do with Soto. I've already mentally tried to process and move on. So I'm just talking about how the Yankees can improve moving forward as an organization, right? Regardless of Juan Soto. And that word comfort is the problem. They're far too comfortable. As Uncle Ted said, how comfortable with Cashman? Rob says the Yankees are very comfortable with their decision making. That's a problem. And that's obviously was communicated that way, that they're quite comfortable with how things are. And that's an issue that needs to be solved, because you can't just be comfortable. You can be comfortable if this was like the 2000s, but it's a different era now. The Mets have more money than God right now. The Dodgers, they don't have a bottom line. They will keep deferring if required to build a super team, right? So this is a different era. The early thousands where the Yankees were the big bad Yankees and they could get every free agent they want is gone now, right? And meanwhile, the Yankees seem a little bit complacent because they're still kind of caught in that mentality, but they're not making moves to go and be that. So they're very much stuck in between. But now you got the Mets that don't have a bottom line, and you've got the Dodgers that are a super team now. So I mean, these are the kind of things now that the Yankees now need to start learning from other teams. Right? Why are they doing things better than we are? Why are they negotiating better? Why are they getting players more? Why are they landing these superstars? Why are they developing better? These kind of questions, and a lot of it comes from being accountable. So that would be the first move that I would make, as Rob says here. Look internally. There's not a single player out in the market that's going to change anything. We can sign all the players in the world, but it doesn't matter. Hey, we had Aaron Judge and Juan Soto and Big G in the middle of our order last year, and we got embarrassed in the World Series. That should tell you everything, right? So it doesn't matter what players that we have out there on the field. We're always going to have stars. A lot of it comes down to how we manage these stars and the fundamentals and management, all that stuff. It's just not up to scratch. It just isn't. There's no excuses for it anymore.
You're right. And again, what can they do to try to replace that offense? And again, I don't think there's a player out there. So what you really have to hope for is what they do add improves the team in other areas. If they have to add pitching to make sure their pitching staff is just better than everyone else, if they have to make sure their defense is better than what it was last year, which is, let's be honest, it's not that difficult to improve on your defense. And with Judge going back to right field, that'll certainly help. If there's some silver lining here, is there'll be a much better team defensively if they add a couple of guys that are available at the positions of need, whether that's Bellinger and Santana or Bellinger and even Christian Walker. We'll wait and see what happens, but they have to do those things. They have to get better defensively. A lot of the miscues we had last year will be avoided. If they can get better pitching wise, a lot of our issues from last year will be avoided. But like I said last night, and I'll repeat myself again, you might have to go a bit old school. We'll have a lot more speed in our lineup now if they add a guy like Bellinger. With Dominguez in a full season, we have Jazz for a full season now. We didn't have him for a full year last year. Maybe they have to start looking to use some speed. We know they don't like to do that. That goes back to my earlier point about changing your ways internally. Go to the hit and run. Remember 2022 when they were doing that? They were creating offense. Even 2019, the next man up mentality, when they had no options. It was Talkman and Maben, and they had to create offense any which way they could, and it worked. So maybe they have to go to that approach because you still do have some big boppers in this lineup. Obviously, it's Judge and Stanton right now, but if you did get a Cody Bellinger, that's a guy that can hit you 25 bombs, especially in Yankee Stadium. So you can still add some thump to this lineup. No one's going to recreate that on-base ability that Soto brings, but you can still bring in good players that are going to lengthen out this lineup, improve the team defensively, and create offense in other ways. So there are ways to still make this team better. And no, it will not help the sting that's left of Juan Soto leaving, but it will certainly make fans feel better that at least this is still a good team going into 2025. Because right now, and again, there's still 2 months to go, but right now, the team we have looks barren. So they have to, and the Yankees know they have to add to it. Obviously, I'm excited. I'll speak for myself. I'm excited to see what they do. I really am, because now Cashman has to work. He has to get to work, and I'm excited to see what he can do. He can shut us all up this offseason, or he can prove a lot of us right. I hope it's the former.
Well, the thing is, yeah, I mean, I don't doubt Cashman's abilities. As I said before, I don't hate him as much as a lot of people do, but I always call it as I see it, and he hasn't chosen the direction correctly, largely since 2010, and that's why the Yankees are in this position. The thing is, as Tats, it's not that he can't get the big guys. He's done it in the past. What it is there's some GMs that have a certain strength, and there's some GMs that have certain strengths than others, right? I don't think Cashman's strength is rebuilding. I don't think his strength is like development and all those kind of factors that you say, like from a Theo Epstein, those kind of guys. He's not that type of guy. He's not a guy that's going to think outside the box and and cul- and cultivate a team like that. He's more of a guy that comes in. He's already said it himself. He's more of like a guy that comes in and just like, this is when in negotiations where he's tough, gets the deal done, kind of a guy. He's that, right? And he likes to hire really good people to help build a good front office. And that's not a disrespect to him, but I think at this stage the Yankees might need a fresh approach from someone with a fresh set of eyes that can look at this situation, because Cashman doesn't have a fresh set of eyes. He's been doing this since 20 plus years, and eventually you need some change, and I think that's the stage that we're at. So it might be a blessing in disguise, right? It is very much in disguise, but it might be a blessing in disguise. So here's what let's talk about now. Over the last 20 minutes or so, half hour or so of the show, we'll talk about what moves we can make. But the first thing is, I don't want to take on any massive contracts. I don't want too many 4 or 5 year contracts, because at the end of the day, I think when Cashman's contract is up, that should be it for him. and we need a new general manager. So I don't want them lumbered with bad contracts because the Yankees panicked after losing Juan Soto. I don't want that. So let's. That's just my personal opinion. I don't want Cashman back once his contract is up, and I certainly don't want Aaron Boone back when his contract is up. Um, I would say they should be fired now, but they won't be. So let's just wait till their contracts are up and then move on and have a fresh set of eyes on this. Well, this whole roster needs completely revamped. That's just the truth. But as of this offseason, let's start talking about what we can do this offseason. Rob, is there any other players that you were thinking about that we could pivot to?
Outside of the names I've already mentioned, no, I've been trying to look at teams that won't be good next year, projected not to be very good next year. Like, obviously, if they can somehow convince the Cardinals to trade Brendan Donovan, I'd be all over that. I just don't see them trading him. So you're getting into the territory of try to fantasy book getting a player here. I just don't think that's going to be the case. So it's really the names that we've been talking about. It's the Bellingers, the Santanas of the world, the Lamont Wades, those types that'll still make your team better. But I'm still going to say just load up on some good pitching and making your defense better because that's gonna help a lot. And again, the bats that I've been trying to add will make the team better. But they're going to have to rely on these, like some of these younger guys. They have to hope that Volpe's better. They have to hope that Wells is better. Dominguez, they have to let this kid play every day, and that's really it. It's a tough market after Juan Soto. It's a tough market to say this guy is going to be like Santander on paper would add you 40 home runs, right? But if you give him like a 4 or 5 year deal, how's that contract going to look after year 3? You don't know. You don't want to run into that territory of getting yourself into a LeMahieu situation. And even with the pitching, you kind of feel a little hesitant because I think we're kind of regretting the Rodon deal right now, and it's only been 2 years. So
Yeah.
maybe the Yankees are hesitant to hand out more big contracts, but for a 26-year-old superstar, they were willing to go all out. I think now their plans have to change a bit, but if they still want to be competitive, they might have to be like, all right, we got to give out one big deal, but
I have a
overload on the
suggestion.
pitching.
I have a suggestion. What about Reynolds of the Pirates?
Didn't they just extend him?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I think the Yankees already kicked the tires on that one. There really wasn't much. The Pirates weren't really interested in anything we were offering. I think the Yankees did try to go all in to get a trade done. I want to bring up right here. I want to thank Slim Lewis for the $5 super chat. Sign Burns and Teoscar. Trade for Bellinger. If the Martian, Volpe, and Wells improve, then the team overall is better. I actually will agree with that. I think that would like. There's no off season. I think when we come into spring training and we grade the off season, I think the A plus and I think an A is already out the window. Maybe we'll see how the rest of the off season goes, but there's still enough time. It's not like we were sitting around waiting until February and we haven't done anything waiting for them to make a decision. This was actually done very quickly, considering the level of superstar that Soto was. So there's still plenty of time for Cashman and Hal to just really, put their pen to paper and start really making some good, smart deals, and not panic. Don't go and do something stupid with like with Ellsbury. Don't go and give out a ridiculous contract for an outfielder when you have Dominguez and you're also anticipating Jones being, a star along with Judge. Leave your window open. Willie, yeah, right. Please, at least
Frankie Criterion. That should tell you everything as to why we should move on from Brian Cashman. While he's not the guy that should be overseeing the post Soto Yankees. Let's be honest. But I wouldn't dismiss Brian Reynolds so quickly, man. I mean, if you think about it, you're going to upgrade in defense. You can play center field or left field. He's going to give you 25 home run power. He's going to hit you 280, which is what Juan Soto would give you, and he'd drive in like 90 RBIs, and you pair that with like a Bellinger. I mean, that would deepen the lineup, no?
No, I have nothing against. I'm not saying that I don't want Reynolds. I would take him in. My hesitance is I don't think the Pirates are willing to move him. That's where my hesitation is.
It was so ugly with the whole he wanted to be traded. They didn't want to trade him, and then they came to an extension. I think it'd be very. Well, then again, the Pirates don't really operate very well, but I think it'd be in bad taste if they trade him. Now, look again, the player. I talked about this guy on the show 3 years ago. I said I'd give up Anthony Volpe for him, but
yeah,
that was when Volpe was our top prospect. I just don't see them trading them at this point because the Pirates are coming up a little bit. They were pretty competitive last year for a while. They got Skeens, who's an absolute ace now. I think they're going to try to add to that roster a little bit and build around a guy like Brian Reynolds. They got some good young talent there, and I think Reynolds is a guy you want to keep. If he was on the market, I'd go after him immediately. I just cannot see a situation where they trade him. And I think now you're going to see a lot more of that where, hell, Oakland's trying to get their payroll to 100. Maybe other teams will do the same thing and try to stay competitive because with those 2 extra playoff spots, you see a lot less terrible teams now. Like Chicago's going to be terrible. The White Sox will be awful, but they don't really have a bat that's going to make us better. A lot of people bring up Luis Robert. That would be kind of like I don't know. It's a risky move there. Like, so
there's really no Aaron Hicks move.
Yeah, there's really no team out there that has a player that's going to be terrible that has a player that's going to make us significantly better. Because even St. Louis, they're not going to be terrible, even though they're trying to retool a bit. So, and I don't think it makes sense for them to trade Donovan unless we gave up a lot of players. Yeah, and Robert can't even stay on the field, so it's like, well, then he's right up Cashman's alley, actually. So maybe he will go get him.
And what about? I'm trying to think. If you're thinking about difference makers, there's one trade that would be a difference maker. Would be Manny Machado. That would be a difference maker. You could convince the Padres to trade Manny Machado.
But yeah, they're competitive though. They've all of a sudden the money that they didn't have last year for Soto opened up. They're able to bring in. After the Soto trade, they brought in several pieces, including Dylan Cease, who I really freaking wanted, but he made their team significantly better, and they're still probably willing to spend money now because with the revenue they probably made from last year, it opens up their pockets a little bit. And they just extended Machado to a massive deal anyway. Yeah. I don't know if they want to move him, nor should they really, because if they were open for business, I'd go get Tatis. But that's kind of like fantasy booking. Just like trying to go get Vlad Jr., that's a fantasy booking move. Because I don't know why Toronto would try to trade him just yet.
Yeah, those are the moves that are done on the show, not in real life. I mean, you also have a lot of these teams lock up there are starting to see that it's hard to turn down your first payday. So teams like Atlanta, they're locking up their young talent early. So, and I think we talked about this 2 years ago, how this was going to thin out the free agency market. As the years went on, I think this offseason, we're seeing, kind of the truth to that. And you just have to wait for the rare years like we're going to have next year, provided that a lot of those players don't get extended this year. It's not a lock that they're going to free agency. Toronto could pivot and offer Vlad a substantial contract for him to stay. So that's why I think that where Donald is absolutely right in, and we've all been saying, it comes down to the development of the players. It comes down to the fundamentals from the front, trickling down from the front office to make sure that when these kids are ready for the major leagues, they're ready. Mm-hmm. Not that they're an absolute finished product. You learn every day. Players in their 40s are still learning. So you're always going to grow in your talent. But we've seen so many times it's like the Yankees like to Yankify their players. They hype them all up. They give them a shot for a weekend. They put them up against They'll put him up against an ace pitcher. He'll strike out 3 times, and the fans are like, "See, he's a bum." It's the Yankees are they're their own worst enemy. They really are.
Right. I mean, that's the reason why we're in this spot. Just look at the way they treated Dominguez.
Let that be a lesson to people now, because I'm seeing a lot of people online saying, "Oh, they got to just trust the kids. They got to retool, rebuild." You want to rebuild? After one game, Jason Dominguez was a bust, considering going back to a lot of what people were saying online.
Yeah.
After that one game against Scuba, oh, this kid's not what he was hyped up to be. You want Spencer Jones here next year? You ready to live with 40% strikeout rate? Or are you going to cast him aside after one bad game? They hated Ben Rice after a week. So you really want the rebuild, but you're not willing to show patience? Anthony Volpe, after 2 seasons, is a hated man by a lot of people. And these people want to rebuild. I'm telling you right now, they ain't rebuilding, one. And you fans that are saying this might think you're ready for it, but you're not. Because you have zero patience for a week of a prospect. You're going to let it build for a couple of years? No. They're not doing that. They can do a mix of that. That's the thing. That's a team like the Yankees will always try to do. It's what they should do, and hopefully that's what they will do, is rely on some of this younger talent, but give them legitimate chances and stop dicking them around, call them up for a weekend and have them sit. Like when they called up Vivas and he just sat there. I'm not saying Vivas would have been the next Robinson Cano, but he was sat on the bench for 3 days and sent right back down. Look what they've done with Peraza. So let them play. That's all I'm asking. And Dominguez, show some patience. As fans, we got to be patient with these kids, because if we really want them to be a part of this team's future, show some goddamn patience. And I know Yankee fans were very impatient because we want instant gratification. It's just not how it works, especially in the game of baseball. You cannot do that. You have to be patient.
That's why I don't believe that Cashman's the guy that should be overseeing this moving forward, because this is the perfect opportunity to reset. You're not going to build a super team. Now that Soto's out of the window, you ain't going to build a super team now. So now it's about how to build a good overall roster. And I don't think Cashman's the guy for that. And it's not, I just don't think he's that guy. You just mentioned it. Peraza. He was sat on the bench, like 27th man, basically. Same with Clint Frazier. And then, oh, by the way, he was up and down like a yo-yo so much that when he did get extended playing time, he played like shit, and then it all spiraled from there. That's what happens if you don't develop prospects properly, or if you build them up to what they aren't realistically. Then you're only going to leave people disappointed. Florial was meant to be the next star center fielder. Yankees played him like a game. You never saw him again. I mean, I can go on a list. And the thing is, the Yankee system isn't bad. We develop good players. It's just the jump between AAA to the majors, or AA is really the more development league now. AA to the majors, it just seems to be once they reach the majors, the development isn't there, because they don't really nurture the talent. They just kind of fire them out there. I just don't look. I'm looking at our coaching staff. Who in our coaching staff do you trust is going to sit down and improve our players? Luis Rojas, the worst third base coach I've ever seen? Aaron Boone, Mr. We love each other and it's all about togetherness and let's all sing songs. Him? And who else? I mean, that's what I'm talking about. It's not about our talent. The talent's there. It's cultivating the talent, developing it, making it better. Alex Cora does a better job of it in Boston. That's why he's got his teams consistently playing far above their level. Mendoza, Mets, you got them playing far above their level. And now they've got Juan Soto. Good luck to the rest of the National League. So, I mean, now it's time for some accountability. There's far too much comfort. And I honestly, it's time. It's time for a change. I'm very much completely on board with time for a change.
And Nathan, Sanchez is a good player. I mean, the Marlins are a team that's probably open for business. They got good pitching. They've got some decent hitters. I know Jake Berger was a guy that was talked about last year. I don't think that's a good idea for the Yankees, because unless they wanted to play first. I'm not sure about his defense over there. But Sanchez is, 26, 27 years old. I think he had like a decent year, 15 home runs, something like that. So he'd be a good, cheap option. But if you're going to go trade with the team for an outfielder, I think they got to go with the Cubs to get Bellinger and just sign a first baseman. But if they go the route of signing a first baseman for if they get Walker for 3 years, it's not the worst thing in the world. But the Marlins are a team that you can always trade with. I've been saying that since last year and the year before that. You can always trade with the Marlins because they don't know what the hell they're doing. But Sanchez is certainly a good option.
Yeah, I disagree with you, Rob.
The whole roster.
Rob, do you disagree with this comment? It's not on the MLB manager to develop players. That's what the minors are for. I disagree with that. Rob?
Yes and no. The Yankees develop very well in the minor leagues. Very well, because our guys keep getting poached. What the Yankees don't do is give them a realistic shot in the majors.
Yeah.
And a lot of that can be put on the front office decision-making. A lot of that can be put on Boone for not playing guys when they get here. I don't know if Aaron Boone himself is going to develop a guy. So there's a little bit of truth to that. It's just more of how the Yankees handle the prospects when they call them up. That's really it.
But remember, the coaching staff under Joe Girardi, Pena, Rob Thompson, those are very much baseball guys. And they worked really hard with certain players. Like, for instance, Gary Sanchez. They worked incredibly hard with Gary Sanchez. Things like that. And that helps. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about development-wise. I mean, I already just mentioned Alex Cora. So there's a manager that actually develops players once they reach the majors. And the reason why I say that is because, I follow other teams. I study what they do too. And Alex Cora has sessions where it's like fundamental sessions every week, right? And I don't think the Yankees do that. In fact, I know the Yankees don't do that. So if the Dodgers are talking about the Yankees' lack of fundamentals, then there is an issue right there. Obviously, there is an issue. And the Yankees don't take accountability for that. They never have, never will, until they have a change of approach. Now, I see someone saying, I want Hal to sell. Steinbrenners are never going to sell. And to be honest, Hal Steinbrenner did nothing wrong. What he could do, what he could do better, is he needs to communicate what the Yankee vision is much better. Instead of just chasing the big name and hope that settles people down, like he's done with Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole, he can get the big player, fine. It's that vision of what do the Yankees stand for now? Are they about winning? Are they about winning World Series? Or are they just about bringing in some stars and selling some tickets? That's what he needs to do, a better job of communicating that vision. And the way you do that is to have better people in the front office.
No, the only message the only message that's communicated to the fans is that if we don't win the World Series, everything is a failure. And that should be the mission of, like I said, that should be for every team, not just the Yankees. That's the reason why you get into competitive sports, is to win the competition. I mean, we're not really, breaking ground here with that type of mission statement. But to go with the managing thing, with the developing, it's also, I think the biggest problem is that the managers of each level do not communicate. I think it comes down to the communication. I think they have just a very diverse managing routine of what they expect their players to do on their field, for their manager. And by the time they get to Boone, now they have to learn a whole new system, because Boone's not going to manage the way that the guy in AAA or AA might. So they're doing their job, getting them ready for the next level. Boone is not equipped to enhance on any of the skills that they've had. Like, Volpe was a speed guy. How often did you see Volpe steal?
Right.
Especially when he was, they put him into the leadoff spot. That should have been like a green light for him. If you think you can beat this pitcher, you take your shot. I have you back. If you think you got the jump, go. But no, they don't want to. They want to go station to station because they want the power bats to have the 2-3 run home run. So they, you can't take away the talent that got them to the major leagues. And that's where it comes down to the analytics and
Yes.
and the team that works with Boone. They're not doing their job by finishing the good work that was done in AAA and AA.
Right. So let's remind ourselves when we interviewed the world's first DH, Rod Blomberg. What was it that he said about the way that the Yankees teach hitting?
They don't.
Do you remember that interview, guys? What did he say? He said that Gary Sanchez was his favorite hitter coming up because he was a guy that could hit to all fields.
Yep.
But the Yankees forced him to be a pull-heavy player. And he says that they did the same thing with Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres was someone that could hit all fields. In fact, he was best when he hit to left center or right center, and the Yankees made him pull-heavy in order to focus on home runs. And you took like 60 points off his batting average. So, I mean, if you're talking about someone who's been an ex-pro that points this stuff out, the Yankees don't take much accountability about anything because Ron Blomberg, I remember in that interview, he said that Brian Cashman asked him to interview for the hitting coach job, and he says, no, because you won't like you won't like what I got to say. And you're not going to listen to it anyway. So that's the truth. Sometimes you need an old school approach like that. I mean, I think I don't know why they would take away some people's best abilities of hitting to all fields to make them pull heavy, just to focus on home runs. No, that's not how you get better.
Yeah, it's how many times do we hear, they want to emphasize, and this was something that Ron Blomberg he despised, was the exit velo and the launch angles and all that, the unnecessary analytics of the game. Because it is it's very numbers driven game. It was always also very argued with, not Ron, Susan Wallman. I'm mixing up two stories at once. It's, she always used to say, who cares if it went 317 feet or 417 feet? Was it a home run or not? That's all that's all that the players should be worrying about, is putting the runs across the board for your team. And all the other stuff is just like a theatric.
That might have worked back in the day when they didn't have all these tools available, but everyone uses analytics now. You're going to tell me that exit velo doesn't matter? It does. Because how many times do we bring up a player's savant page and go, oh, his exit velo's in the blue? They use that as a tool to say this guy could be ready to break out. If he's still hitting the ball hard, that means he's seeing the ball well. If he's making a bunch of soft contact, then guess what? He's DJ LeMahieu with a bunch of lucky hits. Like, I get it. If the ball squeaks through the infield, that's still a hit, but you'd feel a lot more comfortable for guys hitting the ball hard, because that means, like, remember when Judge was struggling? But, like, he's still hitting the ball hard. He's still swinging the bat well. You sense that turnaround's coming, and it did. They use that as a tool. It's not like it doesn't matter. Launch angle matters as well, because if you're able to hit that ball freaking high in the air and get it out of the park, yeah, I know the distance doesn't necessarily matter, but launch angle could absolutely matter. If you hit it high enough, it might fall in. If you hit it high enough, it might go over the wall or be a fly out. So, like, yes, these things do matter. I don't want to say they don't. It's just that if you have an over-reliance on it, that's where you run into problems. Plus, the Yankees don't use analytics correctly.
No,
Clearly.
they don't. That's why I want Fishman out. You could almost do the greatest service to the Yankees by replacing Mike Fishman. He's someone that has no qualifications for his position. And he's led the Yankees down a really dark path with analytics. So if you want to talk about why these players aren't developing, you can directly look at him, because it's his suggestions that have led to some really, really bad decisions, such as Gleyber Torres being messed around. We had a potential superstar prospect in Gleyber Torres, and they pissed him around. Moved him from second to short to second. made him, instead of a guy that could hit to all fields, to someone that could be a pull heavy player. All these kind of things. They've screwed up prospects, man. They do it all the time.
Ethan, I would sign up for that right now. By the way,
50 likes. All right, let's climb that. We've got 105 in the chat, people. We haven't said hello to the chat yet, so everybody, do us a solid and hit that like button for us. Where the sub count is starting to really grow. It's counting by the minute here, so a big thank you. We want to get to 900 ASAP. And let's hit more likes. Everyone, there's 108 in the chat now. Hit that like button for us. Everybody, take that time to hit the like button. Let's aim for 80. Let's aim for 80 likes, right? And then I'll help the algorithm. We want more and more people to see it. And Nathan says here, 6 more to 900. Let's go.
I know we hope so. We're feeling very very satisfied with the turnout over the last couple of days. That goes without saying. So, if you are enjoying it, just hit the like button. Everybody that's watching on Facebook and Twitter, appreciate you. If you want to jump over to YouTube and join the chat, the more the merrier. And everybody listening on Sportswire Radio, hope you are enjoying the listen.
Thank you, Dev. And Dev is a member, and you guys could be a member too.
Now that we got the business that out of the way, let's I've come around a lot more than when we first met about the analytics. I used to hate all of that, because I always felt like it really broke up the swing, where they really just didn't. They got away from the swings that they, when they were developed, meanwhile trying to, to swing upward to increase the launch, like stupid swings like that, rather than just keeping the ball, keeping the bat straight and letting your bat speed and the ball's velocity do the work for you.
Right.
That's where I start to kind of go back to hating on the analytics a little bit, because we saw the difference with Torres, and he implemented it in the postseason, which is why he had the numbers he did. He went back to a more natural swing, so that's what I would like to see more of. I don't, I think the bat speed and the velocity is what's going to have a good exit velo, but the launch angle is going to come. I think that's just a natural thing. You can't, you try to force it, you're going to swing and miss.
Well, bat speed's another metric that we didn't use before, but now we do.
Yeah.
That's analytics.
I'm saying that there are some I've come around on. I used to hate all of it. I used to just go by, the traditional batting average, runs, on base. That now, you end up growing a little bit.
Well, I mean, analytics is a good thing. It's just the way the Yankees, it's the way that the Yankees approach it, and the way that the Yankees interpret it is the problem, and that's been the problem for a long time. As I say, we could talk about players. We could talk about Santander. We could talk about who we could add. But really, if you want a massive change, it has to come from internally. And I'll keep saying it. I'll keep beating that drum. And until the Yankees really focus on a philosophy and changing the way that the Yankees are managed, then this pain will continue, no matter who's out there. We've had Aaron Judge hit 62 home runs, have 2 MVP seasons, and there's still massive holes in this roster. So whose fault is that, right? And that's just the fact. That's just the fact of the matter. We all just basically collapsed at the feet of Juan Soto, hoping that he'd save us. End of the day, he probably looked at a barren roster. And whose fault is that? It's not our fault. It's not the fans' fault. Not Soto's fault. Ain't Judge's fault. You know whose fault it is? Brian Cashman's fault. It's Mike Fishman's fault. It's their fault. Fix it. Change it. Or if you can't, Get out so we can bring someone else that can. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. Real talk. 4
No,
away from 900. Let's go.
Yep. I want to bring this into the discussion before we dip out, but he wants to. Joe Shane Train wants the Yankees to be the new Houston Astros. They were really good for 7 to 8 years, but I mean they were barely winning. They were barely 500 for a long time to build up the farm system to do that. The Yankees are, can they still develop the way that the Astros did? Yeah, but it's going to take some bad seasons to be able to pick that, to have such high picks, to be able to rebuild the way that the Astros did. I don't have the patience for that. I could take a year where we're still highly competitive, like we did in 2016. If we could do that for then I'd feel a lot better about it. But I'm not going to tank just to rebuild my team.
Well, one thing the Yankees have that the Astros didn't have back then is we have really good players right now that we don't have to tank. They can use both their money and the players they have and the farm system to do something like that, which is what the plan was supposed to be in 2017 or after the 2016 season. That was always the plan. But it was the Yankees that got in the way of their own plan. So they could have been the Astros.
They do like to get, that's what they're their own enemy.
Yeah, the Yankees are their own worst enemy because they had their own plan and they got in the way of it. They had a great year in 2017. They added Giancarlo Stanton to that team. However, they didn't add the other necessary pieces. Remember, they passed up on Cole. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole again, but they got in their own way. They could have been the Houston Astros for that many years. They probably would have been better than the Houston Astros because that Garrett Cole trade that ended up going to Houston affected us in so many different ways. If you want to go down that rabbit hole again, but the Yankees got in their own way of that. So they could have been Houston. They just chose to do it differently. And look where we are now. Still figuring out how to win a championship. We probably could have had one by now.
I think we've got a Cashman burner here.
Yeah, it's 90% of the time. No, I don't. I don't think it's that they're not mismatched. Look, Boone is not a good manager. But we've also said at the same time, like, if he deserves the credit, we'll give it to him. The first half of this past season, we went, 2 months without being able to say a bad thing about him. In the postseason run, we had nothing to complain about. We were saying he made all the right moves, but he's not a manager that is going to be able to seal the deal. I really don't think, because he relies on the same guys over and over again, and they burn out.
Okay, an update from Nathan here. Update: Dodgers, Teoscar Hernandez reportedly facing a gap in negotiations. Well, that would be something that the Yankees should jump all over. I do like Teoscar Hernandez, and that's someone that you could probably get in a 2-year deal that could really, really help this lineup.
And real quick before we do pop out, Morosi has an update. Santander is drawing strong interest from the Blue Jays, Red Sox, and Yankees. So that could be the pivot. For all three of those teams that missed out on him, that's probably going to be the pivot, is Santander.
It's like
I like that more for the Red Sox. Again, I don't want anything to do with Santander. I'm not going to change my mind on that. But we'll see. We'll see how the Yankees pivot. As I say, it doesn't really matter what players we target. It's about a philosophy, having a vision, a strong vision, and following it through. That's the key. That's how the best organizations succeed. Because the Dodgers have a vision, guys. Their vision is, let's continue to be the best. Build, 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 build. More and more. I'm not sure what the Yankees' vision is. So, over to you, Cashman.
Yep, that's what it is. It's all right. Your move. Now what? So we'll see. Hopefully, over the next 48 hours when we're back on Wednesday, we'll we'll have some positive updates. Yeah, I do think Teoscar's a better fit over Santander just because it's you get a blend of everything that we need with the bat and the defense. So, but it's all going to depend on the what.
Not the defense, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Hernandez is not a good defender.
Travis, I kind of thought the Yankees would have made some sort of splash now. No, I mean, to be honest, I'm glad that they're not because I don't want a panic move. It's best that they don't make a panic move. As I say, they need to have a vision and they need to follow it through. The best thing that they could do, target starting pitching in free agency because that's where the value is. And then you can make trades for offensive upgrades like a Bellinger. Look at other names because I don't want to take on big years for 30-year-olds that are going to decline within a year, and then you're lumbered with them. Just look at I can go through a list of moves that Brian Cashman's made since 2010, where he's followed that philosophy and it's blown up. So don't do it. No more. Absolutely no more.
Yeah, and I gotta clear my head. I gotta do something about keep saying that he's a good defender because we've gone over this every time I say it. I just can't get those words out of my head. But what I can,
he might be better than Santander, but he's still metrically bad. Like he's, if you look at his Savant page, you're going to see a whole lot of blue there. That's what I'm saying. So
yeah, Profar would be better if for the defensive side.
Right. If it's Santander or Hernandez, just be prepared for adding a good bat with bad defense, but it's not a generational bat. So you're going to get good offense, but the defense is going to be a problem. You don't want either one of them in left field at Yankee Stadium. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Max Fried's my target. Max Fried's the guy that I'm spending big money in free agency.
Yeah, and not that it's an all-star coming off the bench, but even if we need late inning defense, they have Grisham, who's a pretty good defender. So I mean, not that moves the needle, but that's so they have there is a path to have a successful year. It just depends on how they get it. So. We'll see what happens over the next 48 hours. We'll be back on Wednesday, 10 a.m. as always. Do appreciate everybody that spent their morning with us, especially after a late night last night. We do have the best chat, the best family in the business. So we appreciate every single one of you. So hit that like button, hit that sub button, share this out. Your friends, family, strangers on the corner. And just remember, this is the Pitchlight Chronicles, where fans become family. So we let's pinch out your pride and play hard.